The sky above Zathera was a dark canvas of smoke and fire. Cities that had once gleamed with towers of glass and steel now lay in jagged ruins, their streets filled with the echoing sounds of distant explosions and the cries of frightened civilians. Alien warships hung like predators in the thin atmosphere, their weapons scanning the ground below, seeking the last pockets of resistance. Humans and their alien allies had fought bravely for weeks, but every day the enemy pressed harder. Losses had been heavy, and morale among the defenders was at an all-time low. Commander Thalric of the Orvian Battalion watched from a crater near the city's center as another alien strike ripped through a civilian district. He clenched his claws, but there was little he could do. His soldiers had fought with precision and loyalty, yet the enemy's numbers and technology were overwhelming. They had tried walls, shields, and counterattacks, but every plan seemed to fail. "We can't hold this much longer," he admitted aloud, though only a few trusted subordinates remained to hear him. There was a grim honesty in his voice. Zathera's fall seemed inevitable. The humans stationed in the city had mostly kept to themselves, performing maintenance, scouting, or helping evacuate civilians when possible. They were few in number and viewed as unpredictable by the alien allies. Some said they were reckless, even suicidal. Others whispered about their courage, the way they seemed to thrive in chaos. But few had seen enough to believe it. The alien forces didn't trust them. And yet, in the shadows of the crumbling city, humans moved with a quiet purpose, their eyes alert, calculating. In a narrow alleyway, Lieutenant Mara Klein ducked behind a shattered wall. Her team had been sent to retrieve medical supplies from a nearby hospital, a building now half destroyed and smoldering. The air reeked of smoke and scorched flesh, but Mara's face remained calm. "Keep your heads down," she instructed, her voice low but steady. Her soldiers nodded, weapons at the ready. None of them were tall or imposing like the alien warriors, but there was a sharpness in their movements, a readiness that made even seasoned alien soldiers uneasy. Above the city, a fleet of enemy drones patrolled, their sensors scanning for movement. Mara's team crouched in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment. The hospital's entrance was just ahead, a broken archway leading to a stairwell littered with debris. A single misstep could alert the drones. She counted silently, then signaled. The team moved in a coordinated rush, swift and silent. They reached the supplies, packed them quickly into portable cases, and retraced their path. Not a single drone noticed. Meanwhile, Commander Thalric received a report that sent a chill down his spine. A massive alien fleet was entering Zathera's orbit, far larger than anyone had anticipated. Their leader, a towering being named Koraf, was known for his cunning strategies and merciless assaults. Thalric's stomach tightened. The city's defenses were already stretched thin. If this fleet landed, the battle would likely be over before it truly began. In the council chamber of the city's command center, alien leaders argued over strategy. Most of them favored retreat, suggesting that humans and civilians be evacuated, while the military regrouped elsewhere. Thalric listened silently, his mind racing. Retreat would mean abandoning Zathera entirely. The civilians, countless lives, would be left to the enemy. He clenched his claws harder, wishing there were some other way. Outside, the sounds of war continued without pause. Fires burned in several districts, sending thick plumes of smoke into the sky. Screams of civilians intertwined with the roar of weaponry. Even the bravest soldiers felt despair creeping in. Many had fought in battles across distant star systems, yet this fight seemed different. Here, in Zathera's streets, the enemy had the advantage in numbers, speed, and firepower. The defenders were exhausted, their resources dwindling, and hope felt like a fragile thread. Among the civilians, panic spread quickly. Families gathered whatever they could carry and fled down narrow alleys, their faces pale with fear. Children clung to their parents, their small hands gripping tightly, as if letting go would mean certain death. Elderly citizens stumbled, crying for help that did not come quickly enough. The city, once full of life and laughter, now seemed like a ghost. Mara, observing from her vantage point, felt a pang of guilt. They were soldiers trained to fight, but these people had done nothing to deserve this terror. She swore silently that if Zathera fell, she would make sure their deaths were not in vain. Back in the command center, Thalric reviewed the battle plans once more. He tried to devise a strategy that could hold the city long enough for reinforcements, if any existed, to arrive. Every option seemed insufficient. Every scenario ended in loss. His claws tapped nervously against the table, and he leaned back in his chair, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing him. Perhaps this is it, he muttered under his breath. Perhaps Zathera is lost. Elsewhere in the city, the human soldiers moved like shadows. They repaired damaged communication arrays, set up small traps for advancing enemy patrols, and assisted civilians in escaping the most dangerous zones. Their actions were quiet, almost invisible, but their presence had a subtle effect. Alien soldiers, observing from a distance, could not understand why these humans seemed unaffected by fear. They seemed to move with purpose, not panic. Where aliens calculated odds, humans took action, often in ways that defied logic. One such human, Sergeant Eli Ward, led a small group through a partially destroyed marketplace. His team carried makeshift flamethrowers and scavenged explosives, setting traps along anticipated enemy routes. Ward paused, listening to the distant hum of enemy drones. He smiled faintly. Chaos was where humans thrived, and they knew it. The aliens had underestimated them for too long. They believed humans were fragile, that fear would break them. But humans had a different kind of strength, adaptability, ruthlessness, and a stubborn refusal to surrender. As night fell, Zathera's cityscape became a mosaic of flickering fires and shadows. Patrols from both sides moved carefully, scanning for movement. Thalric walked the perimeter with a few of his senior officers. The commander's sharp eyes caught glimpses of humans working in the distance, their silhouettes barely visible in the smoke. He could not explain the feeling that stirred in his chest. Part awe, part fear. These humans, reckless as they were, seemed to radiate a confidence the alien forces lacked. He wondered if they could turn the tide, though such thoughts seemed impossible. In the darkest corners of the city, civilians whispered stories of humans who had faced impossible odds and survived. Tales spread of small squads who had ambushed enemy patrols, saved groups of refugees, or sabotaged vital equipment. Some claimed these humans were fearless, almost unnatural in their courage. Others feared them, believing that anyone capable of such actions could also be deadly, to friend and foe alike. Yet no one could deny that hope had begun to flicker, small but real, in hearts that had known only despair. The next morning, the alien forces launched a massive assault on Zathera's northern sector. Energy beams streaked across the sky, buildings collapsed under relentless bombardment, and cries of panic filled the air. Human squads moved strategically through the chaos, directing civilians to shelters, disabling traps set by the enemy, and striking from unexpected angles. Mara and her team navigated the battlefield like ghosts, appearing where least expected and vanishing before retaliation. Their audacity baffled alien commanders, who had relied on predictable patterns and logic in every battle they had fought. As the day wore on, the alien soldiers began to notice a strange pattern. Wherever humans operated, destruction seemed to follow the enemy disproportionately. Weak points that should have held firm collapsed inexplicably. Enemy patrols were ambushed, communications severed, and supply lines disrupted. For every human lost, 2 enemy units seemed to falter. It was as if the humans had a sixth sense for weakness, a cunning that no algorithm could predict. At the council meeting that evening, alien leaders debated in rising voices. Some argued that humans were reckless and should be restrained. Others insisted that they were the only reason the city still stood. Commander Thalric listened, silently, his mind torn. He had once doubted the humans, written them off as unpredictable liabilities. But now, as he watched reports of their actions, he realized that perhaps these strange, relentless beings were Zathera's last hope. In a quiet corner of the command center, Mara Klein looked at a map of the city, her finger tracing the paths she and her team would take the next day. Her expression was serious, but there was a glint of determination in her eyes. She knew the battle would be brutal. She knew casualties would mount. But she also knew one undeniable truth. Humans never surrendered. Even in the face of certain loss, they fought with cunning, courage, and a ruthless efficiency that terrified even the most seasoned alien veterans. As the city settled into a tense night, fires burning and the occasional distant explosion echoing through the ruins, Zathera seemed to hold its breath. Civilians huddled in shelters, soldiers patrolled the streets, and alien commanders debated strategy. The human soldiers, few in number but impossible to ignore, prepared for the next day's battle. In the hearts of those who had witnessed them, a seed of hope had been planted. Loss appeared certain, but somewhere in the shadows, the humans were already planning their next move, ready to prove that even in the darkest hour they would fight, and perhaps, against all odds, win. The morning light over Zathera was harsh and unforgiving. Smoke still rose from the ruins, painting the horizon in shades of gray and orange. Alien forces had retreated to regroup after yesterday's human-led skirmishes, but their numbers were far from diminished. They were calculating, patient, and cruel. Yet every strategy they tried seemed to falter when humans were involved. Commander Thalric watched the northern sector from a crumbling tower, his eyes following the small human squads that moved like shadows between destroyed buildings. Lieutenant Mara Klein and her team had returned to the front lines before dawn. Their new mission was to disrupt enemy reinforcements that were landing near the city outskirts. With only a handful of human soldiers, they could not face the alien forces head-on. Instead, they relied on cunning and improvisation. They moved silently through collapsed alleyways, dragging heavy containers that contained explosives, scavenged from destroyed alien machines. "Set them near the supply crates," Mara whispered. Her team nodded, spreading out quickly, each member working in perfect coordination. No one spoke more than necessary. Their movements were precise, efficient, and practiced. Mara knew the aliens would expect humans to fight recklessly, charging headlong into the enemy. But humans were not always reckless. They were unpredictable. That was what gave them an edge. The first wave of enemy reinforcements arrived mid-morning, dropping in from hover ships that hovered just above the damaged streets. The alien soldiers expected the humans to panic, to retreat into the ruins. They did not see Mara's team lying in wait. With a single signal, the explosives detonated, sending shockwaves through the enemy lines. Crates of supplies exploded, sending flaming debris into the hovering hover ships. One of the ships caught fire and crashed into a nearby building, causing panic among the troops. The humans struck again and again, disappearing before the enemy could respond effectively. Commander Thalric watched in astonishment. Every time he thought the humans might be overwhelmed, they found a new way to strike. They seemed to think several steps ahead, moving not with fear but with a strange kind of focus that made them deadly. His alien officers whispered among themselves, uncertain whether to admire or fear these humans. Meanwhile, Mara and her team were already moving toward the central communication tower. They intended to disrupt the enemy's ability to call for reinforcements from their distant fleet. Every street they passed was littered with the scars of battle, destroyed hover ships, fallen soldiers, and smoking craters. Civilians peeked from hiding places, watching the humans pass. Some whispered prayers, others simply stared in awe. Humans had a reputation for fearlessness, and the few people who had witnessed their actions spread stories faster than any official message. As the team reached the tower, Mara gave a sharp nod. Sergeant Eli Ward, carrying a modified alien hacking device, crouched by the main access panel. The device emitted a low hum as it interfaced with alien systems. overriding security protocols that had been designed to be nearly unbreakable. "We're in," Ward whispered after a tense moment. Mara smiled faintly. The tower's communications lights flickered and went dark. Any reinforcements that the alien forces had planned to call in would be delayed. Every minute they wasted gave the defenders a chance to regroup. The enemy commander, Korath, felt the disruption immediately. He roared in frustration, sending patrols to investigate. They found only abandoned streets, destroyed equipment, and traces of human activity that seemed almost ghostly. It was as if the humans could vanish into thin air, appearing only to strike and then retreat. The aliens' advantage in technology seemed useless against this new threat. By midday, the city was in chaos, but the humans were methodical. Small squads infiltrated key sectors, sabotaging vehicles, disabling weapon turrets, and freeing trapped civilians. One group, led by Lieutenant Mara, discovered a collapsed residential complex where dozens of families had been trapped under rubble. Using makeshift tools and sheer strength, the humans dug through debris, carrying survivors to safety while alien patrols searched nearby. Their speed and efficiency amazed the aliens, who could not understand why these humans risked their lives for civilians. Commander Thalric met with his remaining alien officers in a ruined council chamber. "They are not just soldiers," he admitted, his voice low. "They are something else entirely. They fight differently. They think differently. They adapt." His officers exchanged uneasy glances. None of them had faced an enemy like this. Across countless star systems, they had defeated countless armies. Yet humans, few in number, fragile in appearance, were forcing them to reconsider everything they knew about war. The afternoon brought another challenge. A fleet of alien drones descended on the southern sector, intent on overwhelming the city's defenses. Mara's team had anticipated this. Using debris and leftover alien tech, they set up traps along the main streets. When the drones arrived, their sensors were confused by false heat signatures and scattered electronic signals. The humans struck from unexpected angles, ambushing the drones with improvised weapons. Explosions lit the sky, and one by one, the drones fell, crashing into buildings or spinning out of control. Eli Ward laughed quietly as he watched the last drone plummet. "They didn't even see us coming," he said. Mara nodded. "They never do," she replied. Humans thrived in chaos, where rules were bent and logic was limited by assumptions. Alien forces were powerful, but they could not predict the unpredictable. That was humanity's edge. As the sun dipped low in the sky, shadows stretched across the ruins. The human squads regrouped near the central plaza. They were exhausted, but not defeated. Mara looked around at her team, faces smeared with ash and sweat, eyes sharp and alert. They had lost some soldiers, but the cost to the enemy had been far greater. Their unconventional strategies had slowed the alien advance, disrupted communications, and saved countless civilians. In the alien command centers, confusion and fear were spreading. Korath could not comprehend the humans' success. Every time he thought he had trapped them, the humans had found a way to escape. Every plan seemed to be anticipated, yet somehow, humans were always one step ahead. It was not brute strength alone that made them dangerous. It was ingenuity, cunning, and an unyielding will. By nightfall, the city seemed almost peaceful in comparison to the chaos of the day, though fires still burned and distant alarms echoed. Mara's team moved carefully through the streets, helping those in need and reinforcing defenses for the next wave. Civilians emerged from hiding to offer food, water, and quiet thanks. Their eyes were wide with disbelief. For the first time in weeks, hope had begun to take root. Humans had arrived, and their actions had changed the battlefield. Commander Thalric, walking the perimeter again, could not shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. Humans were not expendable soldiers. They were a force that even his most advanced strategies could not predict. The aliens' confidence in victory had been shaken, replaced by a cautious wariness. Thalric realized that the humans' presence had done more than fight the enemy. It had inspired his own troops, restored morale, and given the defenders a fighting chance where before there had been none. In one of the city's high towers, Mara Klein looked out over the horizon. The sun's last rays reflected off the ruins, painting the sky in reds and golds. Her thoughts were focused, sharp. She knew the enemy would return with greater numbers. They were not finished, but humans did not back down, even when facing overwhelming odds. Every strike, every ambush, every act of cunning was a message. Humanity was here, and they would not surrender. As night settled fully over Zithera, small fires flickered across the cityscape, illuminating the human squads as they moved through the shadows. Their presence was a silent threat to the enemy, a reminder that the battle was far from over. Yet, in the hearts of the city's defenders, alien and human alike, a spark of hope burned brighter than any flame. Mara and her team rested briefly in a ruined building, checking weapons, treating minor wounds, and preparing for what tomorrow would bring. Eli Ward leaned against a broken wall, shaking his head. "I don't think they'll ever understand us," he said quietly. Mara nodded. "They don't have to," she replied. "All they need to know is what we can do." As the city slumbered uneasily under the stars, human soldiers patrolled the streets, silent and watchful. They moved with purpose, guided by instinct, experience, and a relentless refusal to accept defeat. The alien forces could regroup, plan, and strategize, but humans thrived where others faltered. They were cunning, ruthless when necessary, and fearless in the face of danger. And so, Zithera remained standing, not yet safe, but no longer lost. The humans had arrived, and with them came a new force on the battlefield, one the enemy could not predict and could not ignore. Their presence had changed the war, rewriting the rules and instilling hope where despair had reigned. Loss had seemed certain, yet now, with humans in the fight, it was no longer inevitable. For Mara, Ellie, and the other human soldiers, the night offered no rest, only preparation. The battle for Zithera was far from over, and tomorrow would bring more challenges, more danger, and more opportunities to prove that humans, even few in number, could alter the course of an entire war. The city might burn, the enemy might strike again, but humanity had arrived, and they would not be denied. The morning over, Zithera was eerily quiet. The smoke still rose from the city's ruins, but for the first time in weeks, the enemy advance had slowed. The human squads moved through the streets with calculated precision, their presence unseen yet deeply felt. Every action they took was deliberate, every decision measured, and every move seemed to strike fear into the alien forces. Commander Thalric watched from the crumbling tower, a mix of awe and concern in his eyes. The humans were no longer just fighting. They were rewriting the rules of the battlefield. Lieutenant Mara Klein led her team along a collapsed highway, scanning the horizon for enemy movement. Her soldiers, each skilled and sharp-eyed, carried scavenged alien weapons modified with human ingenuity. Their small size and speed allowed them to move undetected through the rubble-strewn streets, striking before the aliens could respond. Mara paused, crouching behind a fractured wall. She gestured, and two of her team crept forward, planting sensors that would detect incoming enemy units. Every detail mattered. A single mistake could expose them, yet the humans moved with the confidence of those who had mastered chaos itself. In the central plaza, Sergeant Eli Ward supervised another team, setting up improvised barriers and traps designed to funnel the enemy into narrow passages. Explosives disguised as rubble, heat signature decoys, and rigged vehicles were all part of their strategy. Ward glanced at a fallen drone nearby, remnants of yesterday's ambush. He shook his head, smiling faintly. The enemy underestimated them at every turn, believing humans to be fragile, predictable, and reckless. They could not have been more wrong. The first clash of the day came unexpectedly. Alien patrols entered a nearby street, weapons scanning, unaware of the humans lying in wait. Mara signaled, and her team struck simultaneously. Explosions rocked the street as traps were triggered. Alien soldiers, trained to expect patterns and strategies, were thrown into confusion. Some retreated, some panicked, and some fell under the precise, calculated fire of human squads. Mara moved like a shadow, her presence barely perceptible, yet every action she took shifted the balance of the battle. From the city's perimeter, Korath observed the chaos with growing frustration. He could not understand how a few humans were causing such disruption. Alien technology, superior numbers, and coordinated tactics had never failed before, yet these humans seemed to anticipate every move. Korath roared orders, but his soldiers hesitated, unsure how to respond. Their fear was not just for their lives. It was for the control they had always assumed was absolute. Meanwhile, humans continued to rescue civilians, often from impossible situations. Mara's team found a group trapped in the upper floors of a partially destroyed building. The structure groaned under its own weight, and falling debris made every step dangerous. Yet humans climbed, lifted, and carried the trapped people with unyielding determination. Alien soldiers witnessing the rescue could not comprehend the humans' willingness to risk themselves for others. Their focus on efficiency and strategy did not allow for such acts, yet humans had a different kind of strength, one born of courage, adaptability, and empathy. By midday, the city's atmosphere had shifted. The alien forces were no longer merely attacking, they were wary, cautious, and hesitant. Every street held the potential for ambush. Every corner concealed threats they could not anticipate. Humans had turned the battlefield into a maze of deception, traps, and unpredictability. Commander Thalric realized that the aliens' advantage in numbers and technology was now mitigated by the humans' ingenuity. A critical moment arrived when Mara's team discovered a supply convoy attempting to sneak into the city from the northern perimeter. The convoy was heavily guarded and equipped with advanced weaponry. A frontal assault would have been suicidal. Mara gathered her squad and outlined a daring plan. Using a combination of stealth, diversion, and sabotage, they would disable the convoy without engaging in direct combat. Her team listened intently, nodding in silent agreement. Humans did not hesitate when they saw a path, even if it seemed impossible. The plan unfolded with precision. Small squads moved to create diversions, drawing the convoy into narrow alleys filled with traps. Mara and a handful of others infiltrated the rear of the convoy, planting explosives on the vehicles. The detonation was sudden and devastating. The convoy was destroyed before the enemy could react, and the few surviving soldiers fled in disarray. Mara's team vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving only the wreckage as evidence of their presence. Word of the human tactics spread rapidly among both civilians and alien defenders. The humans' reputation grew with every successful mission. Civilians whispered stories of their heroics, while alien soldiers debated the strange phenomenon. "They fight like no one else," one admitted quietly. "They are unpredictable and terrifying." Thalric nodded in agreement. He could feel hope stirring among his own troops, inspired by the humans' actions. Zithra, once on the brink of defeat, now had a fighting chance. The afternoon brought another challenge. Alien reinforcements had managed to enter the city through underground tunnels, aiming to strike the central command center. Mara's team, anticipating this move, intercepted them. The tunnels were narrow, claustrophobic, and dangerous, yet the humans navigated them with ease. Traps were set, ambushes planned, and the enemy was caught off guard. One by one, the reinforcements were neutralized, their movements anticipated and countered. The humans' ability to adapt to the environment, to use it as a weapon, further demoralized the alien forces. At the same time, Eli Ward led another squad to disable an enemy energy generator powering a section of defensive drones. The generator was heavily guarded, surrounded by patrols and automated defenses. Ward's team approached quietly, using shadows and cover to move undetected. Explosives were placed with careful precision, and a single detonation crippled the generator, shutting down half of the drones and giving the defenders a critical advantage. The aliens were stunned by the humans' efficiency and audacity. As the sun began to set, the city bore the scars of battle. Yet human squads continued to move through the streets. They repaired communication lines, reinforced defenses, and rescued those in need. Mara paused atop a ruined building, surveying the city. Fires flickered in the distance, casting long shadows across the rubble. She knew the enemy would not give up. They would return with greater force. But humans had already changed the rules of engagement. They had shown that even a small number could challenge overwhelming power with strategy, courage, and cunning. The alien commander, Koraf, convened an emergency meeting with his lieutenants. His frustration was palpable. "These humans," he growled. "They are not like any enemy we have faced. They anticipate, they adapt, they strike where we are weakest. We cannot defeat them with our usual methods." His lieutenants murmured agreement, fear evident in their expressions. The humans had shifted the balance, proving that the alien assumption of superiority was flawed. Back in the city, Mara's team encountered a group of civilians trapped in a collapsed marketplace. The structure was unstable, and debris threatened to crush anyone who moved carelessly. Yet the humans acted quickly, using tools, ropes, and sheer strength to lift heavy objects and carry the trapped civilians to safety. Their teamwork was seamless, each soldier understanding the other's movements without words. It was as if they shared a single mind, guided by instinct and experience. Commander Thalric, observing from a distance, could not help but feel a growing respect for the humans. They were not just soldiers. They were something more. Their willingness to fight under impossible odds, their ability to adapt, and their courage inspired both hope and fear. The alien forces might have technology in numbers, but humans had something far more potent: ingenuity, unpredictability, and an unyielding will to survive. As night fell, the city seemed almost calm, though fires still burned in various districts. Humans patrolled the streets, checking for traps, securing safe zones, and preparing for the enemy's next move. Mara and her team gathered briefly, sharing information and assessing supplies. Each soldier was aware of the danger, yet none hesitated. They had learned that hesitation in the face of danger was often more deadly than the enemy itself. Eli Ward crouched beside a makeshift barricade, scanning the streets for movement. "Tomorrow will be worse," he said quietly. Mara nodded. "We'll be ready. We always are." The humans' resolve was unshakable. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious in small battles, and they would continue to do so. Their presence had already changed the course of the fight, and the enemy had no choice but to respect, or fear, the humans' capabilities. In the heart of the city, civilians began to emerge from hiding. They brought food, water, and supplies, offering them to the human soldiers with gratitude and awe. Some had witnessed their daring rescues, their tactical genius, and their fearless combat. Stories of humans moving like shadows, striking with precision, and saving lives spread quickly. Hope, fragile yet persistent, began to take root in the hearts of those who had long believed all was lost. Commander Thalric reflected on the day's events. The humans had done what seemed impossible. They had shifted the momentum of battle. The alien forces were no longer confident, no longer assured of victory. Zithera was still in danger, but for the first time its defenders had a chance. Humans had proven that strategy, adaptability, and courage could counter superior numbers and technology. They had turned despair into possibility, and fear into hope. As the night deepened, Mara Klein looked out over the ruins from a high tower. The city below was battered, scarred, and wounded, but it still stood. Fires flickered, shadows moved, and somewhere, enemy patrols plotted their next move. Mara's mind was focused, calculating, ready. She knew the fight was far from over. The alien forces would return, stronger, and more determined. Yet she also knew this: humans did not surrender, they did not falter, and they did not yield. Every action they took was precise, every strategy was calculated, and every risk was worth it if it meant saving lives and turning the tide. The city's defenders, alien and human alike, rested where they could, knowing tomorrow would bring another wave of violence. But the humans remained the heart of the battle, the unpredictable force that no enemy could control. They had arrived when all seemed lost, and with every passing hour, they proved that the impossible could be achieved. Zathera had a chance, and that chance was because of them. In the quiet moments before dawn, Mara and her team checked their equipment, reviewed maps, and whispered plans for the day ahead. Eli Ward looked toward the horizon, his expression grim but determined. "They think they can scare us," he said softly. "Let them try." Mara nodded, her eyes scanning the streets below. The humans were ready. They had survived, they had adapted, and they had changed the battle. And so, Zathera remained standing. The enemy had been delayed, disrupted, and demoralized. Hope had returned, fragile but real. Humans had arrived, unpredictable and ruthless, proving that loss was no longer certain. The war was far from over, but with the humans in the fight, the tides had begun to turn. Tomorrow would be another challenge, but the humans were ready, and for the first time in weeks, the city dared to believe that victory might be possible. The sun rose over Zathera, casting long shadows across the shattered city. Fires from previous battles still smoldered, sending plumes of smoke into the sky, but there was a sense of tense anticipation among the defenders. Humans moved quietly through the streets, checking traps, preparing ambush points, and gathering intelligence. Their actions were precise, deliberate, and effective. Every day the alien forces had grown more wary of them, and every day humans discovered new ways to exploit their enemies' weaknesses. Lieutenant Mara Klein crouched atop a ruined tower, scanning the horizon through a compact optical device. A massive alien strike force was advancing from the eastern perimeter, stronger and faster than any they had faced before. Mara's jaw tightened. This was no ordinary attack. The aliens were determined to reclaim their momentum, and Zathera would pay the price if they succeeded. Yet Mara was not afraid. Fear was a tool humans understood. They used it, shaped it, and often turned it against their enemies. "Eli, the South Sector's patrols have moved closer to the Central Command," Mara said quietly, passing orders through a comm device. Sergeant Eli Ward and his squad moved swiftly, setting improvised barriers and preparing traps for incoming enemy units. They worked silently, their movements synchronized, like dancers in a deadly performance. Civilians watched from the shadows, their eyes wide with awe. Humans were dangerous not just because they fought fiercely, but because they could think ahead, anticipate threats, and act decisively in the chaos of battle. The first wave of the new alien assault hit mid-morning. Hover ships and armored units descended on the city, energy weapons cutting through streets and buildings with deadly precision. The aliens expected humans to panic, to retreat into shelters, to rely on conventional defenses. They could not have been more wrong. Mara's team struck from hidden positions, using traps, fire, and carefully aimed projectiles. Vehicles were overturned, patrols ambushed, and drones disabled before the enemy could fully respond. The humans' unpredictability turned what should have been an overwhelming attack into a series of controlled skirmishes. In the command tower, Commander Thalric observed the battlefield with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "They do not fight like any other species," he admitted to his officers. "They do not hesitate. They strike where we least expect, and their minds are sharper than our algorithms. We may have underestimated them." His officers nodded, some with unease, some with reluctant respect. The humans' tactics had shifted the momentum. Zathera was no longer on the verge of collapse, but the enemy was growing more dangerous, more desperate, and more cunning. Mara's team moved toward the Central Command Center, where where intelligence reports indicated the alien leader, Korath, had established a temporary forward headquarters. Disabling it would cripple the enemy's coordination and buy the defenders critical time. Mara gathered her squad, outlining a bold, high-risk plan. They would infiltrate the building through the city's underground tunnels, avoid main defenses, and plant explosives to destroy communications and key systems. The plan was dangerous, and failure meant death. But humans thrived on risk, on calculated audacity, and on ingenuity. The team descended into the tunnels, their flashlights cutting through darkness thick with dust and smoke. Every step was careful, every sound analyzed. The tunnels were narrow, filled with debris and lined with traps set by previous battles. Mara led the way, her movements precise, anticipating obstacles before they could become threats. Eli Ward covered the rear, ready to respond to any sudden attacks. The squad advanced quietly, relying on instincts honed through countless battles and training exercises. As they neared the headquarters, they encountered a patrol of heavily armed alien soldiers. Mara signaled, and her team struck with lethal efficiency. Drones were disabled, soldiers incapacitated, and the patrol neutralized without triggering alarms. Mara's heart pounded, but her expression remained calm. Humans were fearless not because they did not feel fear, but because they acted in spite of it. Every move, every decision was guided by focus, teamwork, and an unshakable will. Finally, they reached the central hub. Eli Ward set the explosives with meticulous care, connecting timers and remote triggers. Mara scanned the room, noting the complex systems controlling communications, weapons, and reconnaissance. A few quick adjustments ensured maximum impact. The humans had learned to turn the enemy's own technology against them, improvising tools and tactics faster than the aliens could adapt. With the explosives in place, Mara's team retraced their steps, exiting the tunnels and blending into the ruins above. They waited silently, their eyes fixed on the central command. When the timers reached 0, the explosives detonated with devastating force. Buildings shuddered, systems failed, and communication lines were severed. The alien forces erupted into chaos, their coordination shattered. Mara allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Another victory, but a costly one. Some of her team had been injured during the infiltration. Humans were resilient, but the price of war was never 0. Across the battlefield, the alien forces reeled. Korath's strategies, once confident and precise, faltered under the humans' unorthodox tactics. Patrols were isolated, reinforcements delayed, and drones disabled. Fear and confusion spread among soldiers who had believed their superiority was absolute. The humans had not only survived, they had struck fear into the heart of the enemy. Meanwhile, Mara and her team moved to secure the southern sector. They coordinated with other human squads, reinforcing defenses, evacuating civilians, and preparing for the enemy's next wave. Every action was deliberate, calculated, and effective. Humans had transformed the battlefield into a complex network of traps, ambushes, and improvised defenses. Their ingenuity allowed small groups to achieve disproportionate effects, leveling the playing field against a far larger enemy. Commander Falric walked through the city, observing the effects of the humans' actions. Civilians had begun to emerge from hiding, some carrying supplies, others simply watching the humans work. The aliens' confidence was broken, replaced by caution and unease. Thalric realized that humans were more than just soldiers. They were symbols, embodiments of courage, intelligence, and resilience. Their presence had shifted the psychological balance of the war. As night approached, Mara's team gathered for a brief rest. They treated wounds, checked equipment, and discussed plans for the next day. Every member was aware of the risks that lay ahead, yet none wavered. The human strength was not only physical, it was mental, emotional, and strategic. They adapted to the enemy's tactics, exploited weaknesses, and inspired hope in those around them. Their actions had given Zathera a fighting chance. But the war was far from over. Eli Ward examined a map of the city, tracing potential enemy movements. "They're regrouping," he said quietly. "They'll come back stronger, more organized." Mara nodded. "Let them. We'll be ready." The humans had already proven that they could adapt faster than the aliens expected. Every attack they faced became an opportunity to strike back, to disrupt, to surprise. In the early hours of the next morning, the alien forces launched a massive counterattack, targeting key human positions. Mara's team was ready. They moved through the streets with stealth and precision, striking at weak points, using the ruins as cover, and employing traps that had been set days in advance. Every maneuver, every strike, was calculated to maximize effect while minimizing risk. Humans had mastered the art of asymmetrical warfare, turning disadvantage into advantage. The battle raged throughout the day. Drones crashed into buildings, armored vehicles were disabled, and patrols were ambushed at every turn. Civilians cheered quietly from hiding, their hope renewed by the humans' relentless effectiveness. Mara and her team coordinated strikes, rescued trapped families, and sabotaged enemy supplies. Each action further destabilized the alien forces, who struggled to adapt to tactics that were constantly changing and impossible to predict. By evening, the alien forces had suffered significant losses. Koreth realized that the humans were not just obstacles. They were the pivot of the city's defense. If the humans could be neutralized, victory might still be possible, but striking them directly was nearly impossible. They were fast, cunning, and ruthless when necessary. Every attempt to trap them had failed, leaving the alien forces frustrated and demoralized. Mara stood atop a collapsed tower, surveying the battlefield. Fires burned in the distance, lighting the smoke-filled sky. Her team moved below, securing positions, checking civilians, and preparing for the enemy's next assault. The humans had turned the tide once again, but the cost had been high. Injuries, exhaustion, and loss weighed heavily, yet none of them hesitated. Courage, ingenuity, and adaptability had carried them this far, and they would carry them further. Commander Thalric watched the humans from a safe distance, marveling at their impact. They had not only disrupted enemy strategies, they had inspired his own troops, restored morale, and shifted the balance of power. Zathira's defenders could fight another day, and the city might survive. The humans had become a symbol, a force that could not be ignored, feared, or fully understood. As night fell, Mara's team patrolled the streets, blending into the shadows, watching for enemy movement. They were vigilant, aware that the enemy would strike again, stronger and more determined, yet they remained unshakable. Humans had arrived when all seemed lost, and their presence had altered the course of the battle. Loss had seemed inevitable, but now, with humans leading, victory was possible. The city's fires reflected in Mara's eyes as she watched the horizon. Tomorrow would bring another challenge, another wave of enemy attacks, and another test of human ingenuity and courage. Yet she felt confident. Humans did not surrender, did not hesitate, and did not falter. They adapted, struck with precision, and used every opportunity to gain the upper hand. The enemy might regroup, might retaliate, but they would never predict what humans would do next. Zathira had survived another day. The humans had achieved the impossible once again, turning chaos into opportunity and despair into hope. The alien forces were wounded, demoralized, and forced to rethink their strategies. Humans had become the heart of the city's defense, a force that could strike anywhere, vanish without warning, and reshape the battlefield according to their own rules. In the quiet before dawn, Mara and her team prepared for the coming day. They checked equipment, planned ambushes, and reinforced defenses. Every soldier knew the stakes, understood the danger, and accepted it. Humans had proven that even when facing overwhelming odds, when loss seemed certain, they could turn the tide. Zathira was alive because of them, and their legend was spreading with every battle, every rescue, every calculated strike. The night was silent, but the city was far from safe. The alien forces would return, stronger and more determined. Yet humans would be ready. They had faced impossible odds, adapted to chaos, and emerged victorious. Zythera's fate, once bleak, now rested in human hands, and humans never gave up. The dawn over Zythera was tinged with smoke and fire, but there was a sense of quiet determination in the city streets. The humans moved like shadows, readying themselves for what would be the final, decisive confrontation. Lieutenant Mara Klein surveyed the horizon from a ruined tower, her eyes sharp, calculating, and unyielding. The alien forces were gathering, larger and more organized than ever before. This would be the battle that decided the fate of Zythera. The civilians huddled in shelters, watching the sky and praying, while soldiers, both human and alien allies, prepared for the fight of their lives. Commander Thalric walked beside Mara, watching the human squads move into position. He had seen their impact over the past days, and he knew that Zythera's survival now rested on their ingenuity and courage. "They are remarkable," he admitted, almost in awe. Mara did not reply. There was no time for words. Humans never hesitated in the face of danger. They acted, planned, and struck with precision, knowing the stakes were nothing less than life and death. The first wave of alien forces arrived mid-morning. Hover ships descended from the sky, dropping armored troops and energy weapons across the ruined streets. Mara's team had anticipated this move. Small squads spread out through the city, striking at weak points, setting traps, and disabling vehicles with makeshift explosives. Civilians moved quickly to safety under human guidance, carried away from danger zones while the humans engaged the enemy with calculated ferocity. Eli Ward led a squad to intercept reinforcements coming through the northern perimeter. They set up ambush points in ruined alleyways, using debris and makeshift barricades to create choke points. As the enemy approached, humans struck with unexpected precision. Explosions rocked the streets, armored units toppled into craters, and the soldiers who survived panicked under the relentless assault. The aliens had never faced an enemy like this, and their confusion was costly. Meanwhile, Mara led her squad toward the enemy's forward command post, a heavily fortified building that coordinated the alien forces across the city. Their approach was quiet, careful, and deadly. Using underground tunnels and shadowed alleyways, they avoided patrols and sensors. Every step was planned, every move deliberate. Humans were small in number, but their tactics allowed them to inflict maximum damage with minimal exposure. When they reached the command post, the humans found it guarded by elite alien soldiers and automated defense systems. Mara signaled, and her squad struck simultaneously from multiple angles. Explosives detonated with precision, disabling the defensive systems, while the humans engaged the guards directly. The battle was brutal, but swift. Mara moved like a ghost, her team synchronized with lethal efficiency. Within moments, the command post was breached, and Mara set explosives to destroy communication and control systems. From a distance, Commander Thalric watched the destruction unfold. The enemy's coordination was unraveling. Patrols moved without orders, reinforcements were delayed, and drones crashed into streets. The humans had struck at the heart of the alien strategy, demonstrating once again that numbers and technology were no match for ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. As the day progressed, the alien commander Korath attempted a desperate counterattack. Massive armored units and hover ships moved to reclaim control of the city. Mara's team anticipated the assault, directing ambushes and setting traps in every street. Buildings were rigged to collapse on advancing forces, drones were disabled, and communication lines were severed. Every attack was met with a precise and devastating response. Humans had transformed the battlefield into a deadly maze for their enemies, and Korath's forces struggled to adapt. In the southern sector, Ellie Ward led a squad to intercept a group of alien reinforcements, attempting to flank human positions. Using improvised flamethrowers, explosives, and guerrilla tactics, The squad struck quickly and disappeared before the enemy could regroup. Every success bolstered morale among defenders and civilians alike. Humans had become symbols of hope, courage, and unstoppable determination. Even alien allies who had once doubted their effectiveness now relied on their leadership, strategy, and skill. By afternoon, the city was engulfed in chaos. Fires burned in every district, and explosions shook the ruins. Mara moved through the streets with her squad, coordinating strikes, rescuing civilians and guiding reinforcements to critical points. The enemy was disoriented, struggling to respond to attacks from every angle. The humans' unpredictability had turned the aliens' strength into a weakness. Korath's confidence began to crumble. Mara's squad discovered a large alien supply depot, a critical source of energy and weapons for the enemy. The building was heavily guarded, but the humans had a plan. Using a combination of stealth, diversion, and explosives, they infiltrated the depot and rigged it to destroy the supplies. Mara gave the signal, and the charges detonated, sending a massive fireball into the sky. Supplies were destroyed, soldiers scattered, and the enemy's capacity to fight effectively was severely compromised. Throughout the city, human squads struck relentlessly. Mara's team moved to the central plaza, where a final alien defensive line had formed. Civilians watched from safe distances as humans engaged with precision and courage, turning the tide of the battle with every move. Eli Ward led a daring charge through enemy lines, creating chaos and confusion that allowed other squads to gain critical positions. The humans' tactics were unlike anything the aliens had faced. They adapted quickly, attacked from unexpected angles, and used the city itself as a weapon. By evening, Korath realized that victory was slipping from his grasp. His soldiers were demoralized, supplies were depleted, and communication systems were destroyed. The humans had not only resisted, they had dismantled the alien strategy piece by piece. In desperation, he ordered a retreat, but Mara anticipated this move. Human squads blocked escape routes, trapped armored units, and disabled vehicles. The enemy's final attempt to regroup ended in utter chaos. As night fell, Mara and her team moved cautiously through the ruins, securing positions and assisting civilians. The alien forces were scattered, defeated, and demoralized. Zithara, though battered and scarred, remained standing. Commander Thalric surveyed the battlefield, noting the humans' impact. Their courage, intelligence, and relentless drive had transformed what seemed like certain loss into a hard-won victory. In the final hours, Mara and Eli gathered with other human squads in the central plaza. Civilians emerged from hiding, offering thanks, food, and supplies. The humans nodded quietly, their attention focused on securing the city and preparing for potential counterattacks. Every soldier knew the cost of victory had been high, yet their actions had saved countless lives. Their presence had inspired hope where despair had once ruled. Commander Thalric addressed the remaining alien forces and civilians, acknowledging the humans' contributions. "They have shown us a force unlike any other," he said. "Clever, fearless, and relentless. Zythera stands because of them." Alien soldiers, who had once doubted humanity, now regarded them with respect and caution. The humans had proven that even when faced with overwhelming odds, they could adapt, overcome, and turn the tide of battle. Mara looked out over the horizon from a ruined tower. Fires still burned, and the city's scars were evident. But Zythera had survived. Her team moved among civilians, offering protection, guidance, and reassurance. Humans had become the symbol of hope, courage, and resilience in the face of overwhelming power. Their presence had altered the course of the war, proving that loss was never inevitable when humans were involved. Eli Ward joined her at the edge of the tower, scanning the horizon. "Do you think they'll return?" he asked quietly. Mara shook her head. "If they do, we'll be ready," she replied. Humans had learned to anticipate, adapt, and strike with precision. Zythera had survived against impossible odds, and humans had proven that courage and ingenuity could overcome even the most formidable enemy. The night was calm, though vigilant patrols continued throughout the city. Fires flickered, smoke drifted through the ruins, and the hum of distant machinery reminded everyone that the battle was not over. Yet humans had secured a decisive victory. Their audacity, cunning, and relentless determination had turned certain loss into hope, and hope into triumph. Civilians gathered in safe zones watching the human squads move through the city. Some whispered prayers. Others simply stared in awe. Humans had become legends, feared by enemies, respected by allies, and admired by those they had saved. The stories of their courage and skill would spread far beyond Zathera, inspiring hope across the galaxy. Mara and her team patrolled the perimeter one last time, ensuring that no hidden threats remained. They had fought tirelessly, risking life and limb to secure the city. Every human soldier had understood the stakes and acted with precision and courage. Zathera had survived, and the humans had left an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of all who witnessed their actions. Commander Thalric met Mara and her team in the central plaza as the last of the alien forces retreated. "You have changed the course of this battle," he said. "Your courage and strategy have saved lives and given Zathera a chance to recover. The galaxy will remember what humans can do." Mara nodded silently. Words were unnecessary. Humans did not fight for praise. They fought because it was necessary. As dawn approached, the city's fires had dimmed, and a fragile calm settled over Zathera. Civilians began to emerge fully from hiding, cautiously exploring streets that had once been filled with terror. Humans moved among them, ensuring safety and order. Their presence a reminder that hope had returned. They had faced overwhelming odds, adapted to chaos, and emerged victorious. Zathera would live to rebuild, and humanity's legend had grown even stronger. Mara stood atop the tower one last time, looking out across the city. The smoke and ruins were a testament to the battle's intensity, but the city had survived. Humans had fought with courage, intelligence, and unyielding determination. They had faced the impossible, and in doing so, they had proven that loss was never certain when humans were involved. Zathera had survived, and humanity's reputation as a force to be reckoned with had been cemented across the galaxy. The battle was over, but the story of human courage and ingenuity would continue. Zathera had endured, and the humans had shown the universe that they were a force unlike any other, unpredictable, fearless, and unstoppable. The city had been saved, the enemy defeated, and humanity's legend had grown ever brighter.